Hey guys, we got a very, very, very exciting podcast for you today. We have the screenwriters for Deadpool, Paul Wernick and Rhett Reese, and
This is
okay, awesome.
most anticipated movie since at least a year when it was announced that it was going into full production. First question right off the bat: who leaked the footage and why? And how amazing is it that it got out there now and that this movie is made?
Well, if you've ever played a game of Clue, there are about 8 suspects,
Yeah.
right? And it's somebody did it in the dining room with the candlestick. In this case, perhaps only 4 suspects. All we know is we didn't do it.
Okay.
That's but of course Ryan and Tim say the same, so it's like someone's lying.
Can someone get us a lawyer? Do we need a
Yeah, we
lawyer?
have one sitting by.
So it's funny you bring up how there really is only like 4 potential suspects. This movie is unique in the fact that the 4 of you guys were kind of part of the project from the very beginning, and it stayed that way. There weren't like a legion of rewrites and punch-ups and stuff. It was
We were like this little creative terrorist cell is the only way I can describe it. Like, and we were on a mission to convince the powers that be that this was a movie that needed to get made, and that was about a 4.5-year mission between when we finished the script and when they actually greenlit it, something like that. So it was a testament, I think, to the perseverance of Tim and Ryan and just all of us getting creative about ways in which we could spread the word.
So, like, what was the spark that set this whole thing off? Because we had already seen Deadpool, or a version of Deadpool, in the Wolverine movie. Mm-hmm. So, I guess what compelled you guys to be like, you know what, let's just do it again and do it right, and these are the people that are involved, and let's just see this through.
You know, well, Ryan was involved in the project for 11 plus years. We've been on it for 6.5 years. Tim, almost 5 years now. And Fox wanted to spin off Wolverine, spin off Deadpool into his own movie franchise. And they came and put out the word to all of Hollywood that they're going to do that. Obviously, he wasn't treated with the respect. In the first one, everyone knows it, acknowledges it. So it was a chance to reboot the character. Everyone loves Deadpool. He's an irreverent, self-loathing monster, anti-hero, and it was, we fell in love with it. We just familiarized ourselves with the comics and just fell in love with the character. So.
Yeah, and it actually gives you guys a lot of fodder for the jokes in the movie too, because of it being set up in such a way. And I think that's what works so well with this movie is it kind of is almost as sad as it might be, a reflection on just what people are into and about these days, on internet trolls and stuff like that. When you see Deadpool on screen, you're just like, okay, this is a hero I can get behind because he kind of is a reflection on a lot of society today. But it's just fun to watch that.
One of the nice things that when the studio did make the decision to do it, they handed us the car keys. They handed the teenagers the car keys basically and said, drive the car as fast as you want. Like, you can be back after midnight, do whatever you want to do. Mm-hmm. And so I think we as a creative team were freed to both make fun of previous movies, make fun of superhero movies in general, make fun of the studio, really free to do anything we wanted, be as raunchy as we wanted, as gory as we wanted. And that was a gift. It was just the gift of the lack of censorship. I mean, so often when we sat at the keyboard, or when we usually sit at a keyboard, we start to write something and then think, I'm going to take it out. They'll never do it. In this case, we just threw everything that came into our heads onto that page.
We didn't ask for permission. We begged for forgiveness.
Oh, yeah.
After the fact.
It's the best way to do things, I think,
Absolutely.
sometimes. Was there anything that came back where they were like, guys, come on, let's get serious here?
I honestly don't think so. I mean, there was a moment in time where they wanted us to do a PG-13 version just to see what that looked like, and we did that. And that definitely involved scaling it back in certain ways: language, sex, gore. Mm-hmm. But I think when we finished that draft, it was certainly a serviceable draft. But I think everybody felt it was just a little off, a little wrong. It just didn't feel like Deadpool. And then once they made the decision to go back to R, they really almost never censored us. I can't remember a note where the studio said, I wouldn't go there. Truly.
No.
So
That's great.
It's interesting seeing the contrast between how Fox handled this and how Disney Marvel handles their whole thing, where it's a very tight knit, everything has to be part of this larger thing. And here you have Deadpool, who exists in the same universe as like the X-Men universe, but I was pretty impressed with just sort of the, I guess, lack of concern for being like really that cohesive with the X-Men universe. Like, was that ever an issue?
It's a great point. I mean, in the sense that the X-Men universe isn't as raunchy and crazy and silly and meta and all the things that Deadpool is. So I think the studio probably gambled as hard as they gambled on the movie, in that they gambled on the franchise itself. They allowed us to use the X-Mansion, they allowed us to use Colossus and Negasonic and the Blackbird, and
encouraged us to,
and talk about Professor X and those things. I think I wouldn't say they put the X franchise at risk, but they certainly open it up to a whole new breath of fresh air and ridiculousness that had they been more protective, they wouldn't have allowed us to do. So we were very thankful that they nudged us to go ahead and make use of the X universe.
I think it helps too, because it makes people that, you know, are fans of the X-Men regardless of you know, Deadpool kind of taking the piss out of it, actually maybe love that franchise more, and like, it's honestly a great advertisement for Apocalypse coming up, because it's like, oh my god, yeah, the X-Men and blah blah blah, this is great, and Deadpool's such a good movie that it gets you excited for the next part of the X-Men franchise.
It keeps it on people's radar, I think.
Let's get into some fan questions here. We have one from Arth94 who asks, were you surprised at the amount of people wanting a rated R Deadpool movie from the first announcement of the film?
And beyond that, like, how much did the reaction from the fans, starting with that leaked trailer, like, how much did that influence how you guys approached everything going forward?
Well, the fans really brought this thing to the big screen. They brought this thing to life. It was their reaction to the leaked test footage that inspired Fox to make it. So really the fans are responsible for why we're sitting here today and why they're going to see a movie, you know, this upcoming weekend. So
they're our 12th man, as we like to say.
Yeah.
So you said that there was initially, or at some point, a push for PG-13. And I remember while that conversation was happening in the news, like, there was a lot of outcry, like, from fans and then just people on sort of fan-oriented blogs just being like, oh god, please no. Like, how much did that like factor into it, or was it primarily coming from you guys?
It certainly helped. I think when Simon Kinberg convinced Fox to do it as an R, which he really did, I mean, he was the one, I think, who finally just said to them, it needs to be R, here's why. Yes, we're going to sacrifice some upside and some box office, but we're going to more than gain in the fact that we're going to convince that many more people, adults, to see it, because it is raunchy and it is different. We need to be an apple among oranges. We need to be different from the other MCU properties and the other Fox properties and the DC stuff, and this is the way to do it. So But I think Simon, like us, was aware of those fans and aware of the fact that they had balked at the idea of doing it at PG-13, and that played into his decision. So the fans were very, very influential with their outcry.
Chris Farley on Coke.
Sorry about the username. Wow. These are Reddit usernames. So
from the grave.
Yeah.
I mean, this is to you, Chris.
Yeah.
We're happy to answer this one. We love you.
Pour one out for Chris.
He asks, was having the ability to break the fourth wall at will a blessing for you as a screenwriter, or was it something you feared could become overused and gimmicky?
Well, it was a true blessing. You know, Deadpool breaks the fourth wall in the comics. It's really a signature of his, and we really wanted to embrace that. And the fans seemed to love it. You know, there was a moment in time we were testing the movie that there weren't as many fourth wall breaks, and we wanted to add more, so we did. You know, Deadpool not only knows that you know, he's addressing the audience, but he knows that he's in a movie, and that's really, really fun for us.
Kush Raptor wants to know.
Oh man,
Frank Kush,
yeah,
ASU.
I'm not sure
that's the
same Kush actually he's talking about.
What was the biggest challenge when taking Deadpool from comics to live action?
Well, boy, it's a tough question. I think in a way we made a live action comic, if that makes sense. I think that the challenge was letting go of the idea that you had to make a movie more staid and grounded because it was live action. I think we had to just embrace the idea that this really is a comic, and this is a comic come to life. And all the rules they break in the comics, we're not only we were not only encouraged to break those, we were kind of forced to break them in order to be true to that world.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a comparison I've been seeing a lot in a lot of the media coverage of it. But so while you guys were developing this and working on this, the whole thing with Edgar Wright and Ant-Man was going on over in Marvel. And there's obviously a lot of comparisons because of like the unorthodox approach to a superhero and more of kind of a weird approach to it. Did the fact that whole thing fell through kind of like put more pressure on you guys to stand out?
I would say no, if only because it was such a different cast of characters. I mean, obviously, I think there's a little bit of a, not among you guys, but among the audiences, there's a little bit of a misunderstanding about the rights holders and these various institutions that make these movies. MCU is Disney, and it's Kevin Feige, and it is a tone that they've established there that blankets all of their movies. And I think they probably, by virtue of having all these movies work with a similar tone and a similar feel, are probably the most concerned about keeping that tone consistent. And I never read that Ant-Man script, but if we were to make some assumptions, it would be that it was a little left field or a little different from the other ones.
Yeah, more Scott Pilgrim than the
perhaps, yeah. And I think so. That's an institutional decision. Fox is a very different beast. The Fox made Deadpool. Marvel had nothing to do with Deadpool apart from it being a Marvel character. And so it was more about, in our case, it was more about just allowing Deadpool to be his own thing, and not worrying too much about the more self-serious X-Men franchise, and just allowing this movie to stand alone, and then worrying after the fact about how to maybe cross Deadpool over into the other world.
Yeah, we wrote Deadpool really in a bubble, I would say. You know, not Ant-Man, nothing really was on our radar at that moment.
One Hung Moose. One Hung Moose.
Who are you?
One Hung Moose. This is out to you, my
This
friend.
is
Are
your
you hanging out
audience.
with Chris Farley right now?
He asks, what other superhero franchise do you think would greatly benefit or should get an R-rated treatment?
All of them.
Yeah.
Well, all the ones that, I mean, there are ones that are inherently darker than others. I mean, The Punisher is a great example. Now they've already done that in specific movies. Ghost Rider's an example. They've already tried that in a movie. So it's not as though they haven't explored the R before, but I think it's really all about the source material. Some comics are a little lighter than others. But I mean, I would love to see that Punisher movie that I think is still possible, and I know they're now doing they're crossing him into the TV show, which is going to be really fun. Yeah, really excited to see what they do with that, and that I think is the freedom of television and the freedom to take a character that is a Marvel character, but place him a little outside that universe that exists in the films.
My guess is you are going to see more R-rated superhero
And that's going to be
movies
all your fault.
Hopefully after the success of Deadpool, people are going to be willing to take more chances. So.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing, is you have to set a precedent. And I think, I mean, you can't make too much of a prediction here, although, like, based on what we've seen the movie and based on the reactions that we've seen within our communities and just the reaction online in general, is that, I mean, this thing's a home run. Like, this is the best possible Deadpool that you could get in a film. And I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people and a lot of studios, where they can look at this as an example and say, if they can do that, we can do that with this other character. And
I think what people forget is that a lot of our very favorite action movies from the past were rated R, whether it's Die Hard or RoboCop or Terminator.
The 80s and early 90s were brutal.
Yeah.
They were brutal, and those were great movies, and they were movies that played to huge audiences. And I think in the chase for the almighty dollar, we might have forgotten that those can be our very best movies. I mean, Mad Max is your favorite movie of the year.
Yeah, that was incredible. Yeah.
Oh man, it's fucking awesome.
Yeah.
Can you say that on this?
You can say whatever the fuck you want. There's no rules.
Oh man, the cuffs are off.
Yeah, Fox made that same mistake. Told us that
I don't think that's a mistake. I think that's not exactly what we're talking about.
What would a Deadpool podcast be if
Oh my God,
censored it?
Yeah, we would be just
defeat the whole purpose.
Jerks. When you were writing this, and obviously casting happens at a different stage, but as things were being cast, did you like see how perfect of a fit that was and realize that this person is going to do this character exactly the way we want it to? Like I really love T.J. Miller in this movie. He is great comic relief. So when you finally saw these names signed on, was it like kind of a relief or?
Yeah, it's thrilling because you wonder, obviously we wrote the script. Ryan was the voice in our head always from the very start, but some of these other characters who were brought on after the fact, to imagine, TJ as Weasel before you see him up on screen, it's just, again, it's one of those just huge smiles that, huge Silicon Valley fan.
Yeah,
it's so funny, and it's just,
And Tim Miller deserves huge props for putting that cast together. It's an eclectic group that you wouldn't necessarily have pictured all in the same movie, but I think that's a testament to Tim's vision.
Yeah, we had Ed Skrein in here about like 7 or 8 months ago when he was promoting The Transporter, and so we covered that for the first like half hour, 40 minutes of the podcast, and then we're like, okay, well, let's talk about what you got coming up. We brought up Deadpool.
Lit up. And he was like, oh my god, I brought my comics to the set, and like, blah, blah, blah.
Oh, he's a huge comic geek. Huge comic geek, that is.
Yeah, just seeing how excited he was about it.
Was that
like, got me pumped.
I mean, first of all, you guys were on set, I'm assuming, for a good portion of this.
All
like,
of it,
was it kind of just this blast to make? Because everyone involved seemed like, I mean, obviously Ryan Reynolds, and we saw it with Ed Skrein, but it's just like everyone looked like they were in love with making this movie.
You can always tell a movie is going to be fun by just sitting on set and seeing how everyone is interacting. And it really felt like a family out there, just a very fucked up, dysfunctional family, but a family nonetheless. Everyone had a great time. We worked 16, 17-hour days, and, everyone was bouncing around. Ryan was in, took him, 6, 7, 8 hours to be in full body makeup at times.
Oh, wow.
Still, walks out the trailer, just beginning his day, and with a huge smile on his face. It really is. It's the culture of the set. And, you feel that oftentimes translates to the screen, and I think it did in this case.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But when Deadpool is as much a comedy as it is a superhero movie, and so how much, I guess, of the like back and forth dialogue, especially with someone like T.J. Miller, how much of that was improvised or like punched up during reads as opposed to like what you initially wrote? Like how do you work with guys like that are just
they're
spouting?
The best. I mean, we've had the great fortune of working with a lot of great improvisers in our career. We started with a show called The Joe Schmo Show many years ago.
Oh,
It
yeah.
was full of wonderful improvisers. Ryan's a tremendous improviser. So is TJ. Different actors have different comfort levels with regard to improvisation. So some of them will stick just right directly to the script, and that's where they feel safest. Ryan and TJ in particular, those two guys, are exactly the opposite. Like they like to get what's on the page. I mean, they're great about that. They do respect the script, but then they riff too, and boy, do you get some gems out of that. Ryan Reynolds gave us more gems. He makes us look good so many times in that script. And TJ on that. Are we spoiling now or not? Have we reached that? No. Well, you've seen if you've seen the commercials, there's a scene where
when he's talking about his face.
TJ's talking about his
seen
face.
that.
Yeah.
That's not
Now TJ is a comic, right? So he's used to making insulting comments that are funny, and so they just turn him loose. They said, just start riffing about his face, and my gosh, for about an hour we laughed so hard. I mean, everything that came out of his mouth and was funny, and it became a challenge to figure out which were the funniest things he said. That scene could have been 10 minutes long.
We called him Benjamin Button on set because he would button every scene of the joke. It would always be different. It would always be funnier and funnier.
Every take was something new.
That's got to be like a dream for you guys to be able to basically hand someone something that's that good and then have it be improved by the actors involved. That has to be just the greatest thing for a screenwriter.
We call Ryan Reynolds the elevator because he elevates
or
everything
the escalator.
he touches.
Sometimes we call him an escalator. Or what else rises?
The people mover. I don't know. He basically
the airplane.
Yeah, the rocket makes. We're not even being funny anymore.
We have a good one here because we actually talked about this a bit yesterday. One of our friends that works for Joe Blow wrote a whole article on his personal blog about how the title was basically every kid should sneak into Deadpool. And we have this. I know you can't endorse that. Probably, I don't know.
Every kid
but
should buy a ticket to
Right,
Deadpool.
don't sneak in.
Don't sneak in. That doesn't
Just
help
to
us
support
at
it.
all. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Get on your friend's shoulders. Get
Yeah,
a big
yeah,
overcoat.
yeah.
have you
Yeah,
seen the video of the
exactly.
guy
The trench
that
coat, I
walked
love
in? They actually
No.
did that.
Oh, did they really?
I was like,
Hilarious.
we're gonna try that, and they actually did. and-
Awesome.
Oh, I love that.
But okay, so don't sneak into it. Buy a ticket for it, and then.
Parents,
Yeah.
do yourself a favor. and
So I
your
guess the
children.
question
Educate
is
your
no,
children
but
by-
it's Runny123 asks, I'm 13. Can you give me tips into how to sneak in the movie with my friends?
Well, that's a tough one. We'd
Yeah.
prefer you not.
Yeah.
That said, I don't know. We've had discussions.
Fire alarm?
Yeah.
If, yeah,
Maybe
fire.
a fire alarm might
Well,
be
so
good.
what I think is so unique about Deadpool is we're in 2016 now, and there's just at any age, I guess at this point, not endorsing this, but in any age you can kind of go on the internet and see whatever. There's no
Right.
there's no restriction there. And
I
what
would
I think
agree.
is so cool about Deadpool is it's almost this last bastion of being held back from younger audiences, where it's like, this is something I can't see.
Yeah, it's the
What is-
forbidden
what in
fruit.
the
The
world?
forbidden fruit.
Yeah.
Makes-
You're right. I mean, I don't know. We've had discussions about at what age, because Paul has a son who's 12, almost 13. At what age would you be willing to take your child to Deadpool? I personally would take a freshman in high school. I'd take a 14-year-old a kid to that, because
Not
I
you
think,
personally,
No,
but-
not me personally.
Yeah, that would be
That's
weird.
creepy. Let's not do that. But I'm saying, as a parent, I would prefer to sit next
Rhett
to my
would
kid.
actually himself take a 12-year-old. But
Well,
if
as
he
a
was a
parent-
parent, he would
as
take
a parent,
14-year-old.
I would prefer probably my kid to be sitting there
Yeah.
watching it with me, so I
Yeah.
can answer questions, or like,
Dad, you
because
wrote this?
Yeah, exactly.
What are you doing?
The internet's
You are a
out there.
mess,
yeah,
Dad.
you're a monster. But the internet's out there, so they're gonna learn it somewhere and somehow. You know,
Yeah.
might as well be a place where they can ask questions afterwards.
Well,
is
it is
my
funny.
point.
We had someone on Twitter that hit us up, and he's like, I see, every movie with my parents, like, apparently has a really good relationship, and they love movies together and stuff like that, but he is of age. He's like, do you think it'd be awkward to watch this with my mom and dad? And I was like, I don't know. Maybe you should go see it first. And then, so he went and saw it. He's in a different country, so he was
Right.
able to see it, and was like, I loved it. Probably gonna let my parents watch this one alone on their own terms.
That I
Tell the
watched,
story.
Yeah,
This is a
I
great
watched
story.
the Vagina monologues on Broadway in between my two parents,
Oh,
and
no.
it was like when I was probably 29 or 30 at the time, and it was the most awkward hour and a half of my life. I had flop sweat. I was just the sweat was trickling down my cheeks.
And what was your grandma story?
Oh, well, and then I watched. That's the other thing. I watched Dangerous Liaisons next to my grandmother, who's the greatest woman in the world, and we watched it at home on video. And it was so funny because the movie gets kind of progressively more twisted. And at one point, about maybe a third of the way through it, Uma Thurman takes off her top, and she's topless. And of course, the greatest moment in the world for for someone of my age at the time. But I'm sitting next to my grandma, and I'll never forget it. The camera's on, so the top comes off, and my grandma and I have been sitting in silence watching the movie, and the top comes off, and my grandma does exactly this. She goes, all right. And just slaps the knees and walks right out of the room. And I will never forget it. So, yeah, you bring up a good point. Maybe more awkward for the kid than for the parent.
Yeah, that's it's so funny because when I was young, when I was really young, my dad would just cover my eyes and stuff
Right.
like that. But there was a point where I had seen movies like this guy has, and then my parents would want to watch them when they were out on home video or something like that, and I knew the parts that were coming up.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, oh man, I'm really hungry.
I'm gonna
all
go
of a
to the
sudden,
refrigerator.
anyways, there's a big sex scene coming up, so
Right.
just put like a thing on the Blu-ray release. It's like, get up and go get a drink
Yes,
right now for exactly
exactly.
4 minutes. And no, but it's so cool in that sense that it is that kind of forbidden fruit for a lot of kids, especially in a society that gives you so much instant gratification on anything, that this is being like, I don't know, it's just a cool feeling to finally have something that not every kid can see. or
What's
should see.
funny too is that it's R-rated here in the U.S., but at least from what we've heard from our viewers, like in Europe and the UK and Canada, it's like 15, 16.
Well, they're drinking wine over
Yeah,
there. I
yeah.
mean,
It's a little
whole
bit of a
different
free-for-all
world. Yeah.
over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Amsterdam, come on. Like, those kids are way ahead of us
The
American
curve,
prudes.
yes. Here's what we tell people, or here's what I tell people, actually. It's not the official Fox, words.
are my own.
Yeah, but what I say is, parents, go see the movie yourself. Make that decision.
Yeah.
And
And then
then
buy more tickets.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's
go see it
actually
again.
my chance to get the box office just bumped that a little higher,
Yeah.
because then they see it twice.
Yeah.
No, but really make your own decisions, because for some families it will be okay, for some it won't. So.
Yeah. I think you guys are gonna have a thing on like Monday morning when you go, it's so weird that Star Wars spiked again the same weekend that Deadpool
I know.
came out. That's such a strange
what an
coincidence.
odd-
Yeah.
I
Like,
really don't want that
Do
to
people
happen.
sneak into movies still? Because with reserved seating now, it's a little harder
Well,
to
I
sneak
mean, here in
into
LA,
movies.
we're
We're spoiled
blessed
with the reserve
Yeah.
seating.
Yeah,
I
no.
went home to my girlfriend's hometown, like in North Georgia, and we went to go see Creed, and I was just like, I can't reserve a seat. This is madness.
Oh,
I don't want
no.
to go in there and fight people for my seat. This is insane.
So it's
good
the
point.
coast thing. It's
Yeah,
the
yeah.
reserved
it's like
seating.
the post-apocalypse, for God's sake. I mean,
Yeah.
you're fighting people for a seat. It's not. Who knows?
I think theater personnel are going to have their hands full this weekend. I hope it's all purchase tickets.
Well, it happened with 50 Shades last year. They had
Oh, did
theaters
it?
were reporting like huge problems with like people like
Crossing.
sneaking
That's
like-
theaters.
one.
I mean, I remember one specifically when I was young. I snuck into Showgirls.
Did you? I
Did
swear.
The pool scene changed my life forever, probably in the worst way possible. Elizabeth Berkley gets banged in a pool.
Yeah, by Kyle MacLachlan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to get
Red
into-
actually
apparently-
snuck into 50 Shades himself.
Yeah?
Not to sneak in
Apparently,
himself.
Rennie Harlan got in the pool with Kyle and Elizabeth and was directing them from inside the pool. That's how crazy that movie is.
Oh, great.
Wow.
Well,
Little Showgirls trivia.
Yes.
but I want to talk
Who knew?
spoilers. So let's, Maddie, do you want to cut and then we can? We can just do it naturally then. We'll
Yeah.
just do it in the edit.
So it's time to
Spoiler time.
talk about spoilers.
You've all seen it by now. It's
Spoil the
Sunday.
movie.
You've
Yeah.
all found a way to sneak in. And also slipped some money
Parents,
into
you can't
20th Century
sneak
Fox's
in.
mailbox.
Yeah, you can, is there an address that can send their theater dollars to after they
Yeah.
sneak in? All right,
Rhett
well,
Reese at.
just give
Set
your
up
home
a
address.
PO
please.
box. Yeah, I gotta set up a PO box.
All right, we're gonna start talking some spoilery stuff soon, so we're gonna take a little break and talk about some sponsors because this episode is brought to you by Loot Crate.
Yeah, Loot Crate's a monthly subscription box service for epic, geek, and gamer items and pop culture gear. For less than $20 a month, you get 4 to 8 items that include licensed gear, apparel, collectibles, unique one-of-a-kind items, and more.
So make sure to head to lootcrate.com/ETC and enter our code ETC to save $3 on any new subscription. Helps out the podcast, helps out the show. Thank you guys so much. So do that. Now, Loot Crate is more than just a subscription service.
Yeah, it's an entire community of fans that share their experiences and interact with each other around the unboxing of each month's crate. You want to get that YouTube money?
Unbox something.
Get yourself a box.
I unboxed mine on the Snapchats.
Oh.
Anyways, they guarantee $40+ in value every crate. Sometimes it's a lot more. Every month there's a different theme, and all items are curated around that theme. For February, they've braved the dangers of Alexandria and bribed some mercs with chimichangas to bring you the finest loot this side of the afterlife.
Yeah, in a very fitting piece of sponsorship, this month's theme is Dead.
Yep.
And it reaches across genres to bring you 5 exclusives, including a t-shirt and 2 figures to celebrate new episodes of The Walking Dead and Deadpool's solo film debut, which you're probably interested in.
Yeah, because you're
Why
watching
are you-
this.
Yeah.
Anyways, you only have until the 19th at 9 p.m. Pacific to subscribe and receive that month's crate. When the cutoff happens, that's it, it's over. So go to lootcrate.com/ETC, enter code ETC, save $3 on your new subscription today. Now let's get back to it.
So one thing I was really struck with that I wasn't expecting at all going into it was just how you guys sort of characterized Colossus in this movie as opposed to how he's been depicted in X-Men films before. I thought he was just a really like charming, unique character, a really funny sort of oxymoron of traits where he's this incredibly tough dude, but he's also a gentleman.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we already talked about how you kind of got a long leash from Fox, but I guess talk about how you developed this new version of Colossus and why you chose him as one of the only 2 X-Men in there.
I think he's a great foil to Deadpool because he's a goody two-shoes and he's a nice guy and he's a good guy and he really believes in good versus evil and believes in the X-Men's mission, and Deadpool couldn't be further from that. And So you put those two together, and suddenly you've got sparks. You've got a guy who wants Deadpool to watch his bad language, and of course Deadpool, every other word is a bad word. You also have a guy who's squeamish. We thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
Colossus
Yeah.
had a
Just
bad
puking
gag,
all the time.
gag reflex around Deadpool. Not a good thing because Deadpool's invariably, spilling blood somewhere. So it was all about who played best off Deadpool.
Mm-hmm. And I'd love for you to talk about Negasonic Teenage Warhead, because that character really stood out to me in this movie as, like, I just love that when she finally unleashed her powers, it was really powerful in the movie and in the scene. What was it like developing her character in this movie specifically?
Oh, so much fun. I mean, again, we put her in the movie simply for those 3 words, Negasonic Teenage Warhead.
It's an incredible name.
We didn't know anything about her other than her name is Negasonic Teenage Warhead. Deadpool is going to have a fucking blast with that. And then, interestingly, in the comics, that is not her power. The explosive nature isn't her power, and we actually, had to ask Marvel. That's one of the few things we had to ask Marvel to change is her powers, because she's psychic in the comics, and the teenage girl, the girl who doesn't want to be there, again, off the contrast of Deadpool, who's this crazy ass, guy. And so she's so great, and Brianna is so great playing her.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite shot in the movie was when she launches him onto the top of that shipping
The best part is his high-pitched screaming. Every time Ryan does these, high-pitched, I can't even do it, but these high-pitched screams when Deadpool is faced with great danger. And anyway, it always makes me laugh as he's flying up on that wing, just screaming like a little, like a 9-year-old girl.
NTW and the Unitard, too, in her X-Men uniform.
Just like her look, her vibe, everything in this movie works great for that character. And honestly, I would not be surprised if she turns into this huge character in the comics and in future movies, just simply because of what you guys did with her. Even the new power that you've given her might become canon in the comics, because it makes her way more interesting.
I think she's only been in one comic, or like one issue of one comic. So I think you could spin her off into her own series.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a pretty specific one now that we're in spoiler territory, but what was the most fun scene to write in this movie? Was there one that stood out that when you finished it, you were like, I cannot wait to see this on screen?
For me, it was the fight between Deadpool and Colossus, where Deadpool keeps breaking his various bones.
That was amazing.
That was just... I wrote the first draft of that scene.
It had a Black Knight vibe, like the Monty Python.
It was definitely a little bit of a nod to Monty Python, but I remember just picturing him with these wrists that were flopping and thinking of a dinosaur, like a Tyrannosaurus Rex. And
it must have been hilarious to get the film back the first time you saw it, and you actually saw that.
Oh my God.
Can't imagine the response.
We played it for screening audiences before
the effects
were in there. So he looked fine, and they were laughing, but they weren't really that into it. But then suddenly you add that flopping leg and the flopping arms, and it became so much funnier. But that was probably the most fun thing to write for me.
I'm trying to think what would have been... I mean, again, it's the entire script was so fun to write. It's the easiest and most fun we've ever had writing a script. The voice just lives in our head.
Yeah.
And Ryan, speaks to us as we're sitting at the computer, quite literally sometimes. And
it must be easy, especially when you have that voice already of Ryan Reynolds as the character in your head, because you can write with him speaking basically to you.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes we'll sit and write, and it'll be, what should be a 3-page scene that will expand into a 10-page scene, because we're just, putting jokes, and then we'll obviously have to call that down into a smaller, more manageable scene.
So how do you guys kind of, like, when you work together, how do you divide that kind of writing responsibility up? Is there one person that does things, has stronger...
Well, not necessarily, but we just split up scenes. We say, I'd love to write 2 and 3, and, I'd love to write 5. Okay, you write 5, and then we just leapfrog each other, and we rewrite each other. We send the scenes back and forth. So we're never in the same room, apart from when we're figuring out the
story. We're in the same room, but
when we're writing, we write separately and just email the scenes back and forth. We continue to rewrite each other until a scene feels like it's
Do you feel like that makes kind of the process a lot stronger because you get instant feedback based on what you're writing?
Absolutely.
Very much so. It's a great point. It's probably the single best thing about writing as a pair.
You get some perspective.
Because you're still in a bubble with yourselves, but you're not just completely away from everything, sending sending it out to get approved.
Very much so. And then Ryan became the third point of that triangle. We would send, once we were done, we would send the pages to him.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you've got other people who weigh in, the director and the studio and stuff.
Yeah.
But Ryan was a great person to bounce stuff off because he knew the character really well, and he could say, that doesn't quite sound like Deadpool, or, oh, I could imagine doing this, or oh, I can definitely see saying that line. So it helped us.
So yeah, just to jump off that really quick, because we have a question about a name that I will not name. But
Oh, come
it's
on.
gotten
Now
worse than
suddenly
what-
it's like...
it is worse.
Oh, it's even worse. Then don't.
Steve-O the pedo.
Okay.
We'll cut that part, but he says he asks, how involved in the scriptwriting process was Ryan Reynolds?
Very.
Yeah, I mean, intimately involved. Oftentimes whispering in our ear over our shoulder
Yeah.
while he was shirtless. No.
What?
What?
Where's that? What?
Oh, Steve-O the pedo's okay, but that's not. Like, come on.
Was he was the suit almost when he got into her, we got full makeup, was that almost transformative to him as a person being on set, and kind of like, did he instantly lock into that
I think you'd have to
character
ask him, but I will say this: when you saw him in the suit versus the stunt guys, you knew who was Deadpool and who was just was just the stunt performer, because his body language was so ridiculously good. Like, he acts so well in that suit. He's got a real Chaplin-esque, Buster Keaton-esque physicality to the way he moves in that suit. And you see others try it, like stunt guys and marketing had a couple guys get into the suit to try it for a commercial. It just doesn't work because they get this kind of too big C-3PO thing going on. And whereas he's very subtle, and yet with those little subtle gradations, he can make you understand what Deadpool's feeling with the cocks of the head and the that whole thing where he goes and looks back and
the
forth.
emotion
Yeah.
that you can get just
Yeah.
off of a guy in a suit where you can't see his face.
Yeah,
is
no
incredible in
face.
this-
So it's a
this
whole
movie, yeah.
different way of. Yeah, I was
works
just very
quite well.
impressed with
Now,
how
now
much.
Tim Miller did a great job animating that face. When you watch the movie
There's, yes.
multiple times,
Yeah.
you'll see that face. What they did was they did facial work with Ryan, where they would have him in front of a camera and he would do the performance without a mask on, and then they would use those markers to help move the face. So
Okay.
you can see the Deadpool eyes get a little bigger and smaller. They're
Just a
slight.
emotion.
It helps.
And in this movie specifically, there's a lot of different scenes that go back and forth between straight up comedy, action. There's a bit of romance for the ladies out there that haven't seen it yet that are holding back. Go see it. There's a lot of romance in this movie. But what was it like kind of bouncing between those kind of separate genres and making it all work together?
Well, it's delicate, to mix those tones. The movie is many things, It is a comedy. It is an action movie. It is at times a horror movie. It is a love story. It's just a delicate balance of tone and what's interesting is because it's something we've thought about a lot. We did it on Zombieland as well, as the ability to kind of mix and match those tones and not have it feel inconsistent.
Yeah.
And I think, more than anything, you have to ground the movie because life, real life isn't one tone. One day you'll be happy, or one moment you'll be happy, one moment you'll be sad, and so it's just making it feel as real as possible so that you can bounce in and out of those tones and you can laugh at one moment and you can, cry or feel deeply in another moment. So it's a delicate balance. We can't really explain how we do it in the sense that we don't really know. It kind of works, and when it does, it really works well. So
So the movie starts in the middle, which I thought was really cool. You don't see a lot of big superhero movies do
kinda
non-linear
dropping the action.
in media res, I think it's called in the screenwriting
Wow,
community.
you're bringing English, high school English.
Yeah.
I like that, or college English.
So the movie starts pretty much right in the middle, and then you sort of bounce back to the origin, bounce back and forth throughout the rest of the story. When did you decide that was the right way to pace the movie?
Well, very early on, we wanted to tell an origin story. We had to reestablish or reinvent Deadpool on the screen, and it was Ryan, was the great champion of that. He felt that, the origin story of Deadpool is so important as to how he became who he is and why he uses the humor, the tragedy, and all that's driving, him, spinning it on its head. So the origin story was important, but we wanted to get the character in the suit right away. We wanted to, grip the audience by the throat and start him in an action sequence.
There's one of the best opening title sequences I've ever seen. by the way.
thank you.
Yes.
And so it was, bouncing between the present and the past, establishing how he became who he was, and integrating that into the present day story of him seeking revenge against Ajax. And another function of why we bounced around in time and space was budget. This was a movie that was a considerably lower budget than most superhero movies. Ryan jokes that we made this movie on the laser hair removal budget of most superhero movies, and so the ability to jump in and out of time and space allowed us to stretch that first big set piece over the course of the first act and a half, 2 acts of the movie. So that was another function of being able to tell a non-linear story.
And with a lot of the stuff that goes on in the movie is nods to other Marvel movies, superhero movies, and stuff like that. Were kind of these little Easter eggs that you dropped throughout the movie, was that important to you, that you wanted to make sure that people knew that this movie isn't your average superhero movie?
It's self-aware.
It takes the piss out of other stuff. It is self-aware. It knows that there's the point in the movie where you realize that he knows that he's in a movie. Obviously fourth wall breaking does that initially, but there's jokes within the movie that shows the audience that he knows everything that's going on.
Yeah, it was very intentional, and we kept looking for opportunities to do it, especially once we realized in research screenings that people enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
They wanted more of it. It was always every scene, because we had the freedom to break out of it with a fourth wall break, afforded the opportunity to make a comment on the fact that this was in fact a movie, and there was a studio behind it with a budget and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was very freeing to be able to make those kinds of jokes, because what other movie ever does that?
Yeah.
None, literally none. So it was awesome.
Was there anything that we might have missed in our first viewing of it, like an Easter egg that you think is so hidden in this movie that people might be able to glance over it, that you kind of wanted to be noticed or something like that? Or was there one that was specifically
all the
fun?
Freeway signs
there's-
have little inside jokes on them, but they're mostly jokes that give credit to various writers who've worked on Deadpool before. So
Okay.
Comics, yeah.
they're a little less for the fans and more for some of the people who worked on the comics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm trying to think what other little Easter eggs are in there.
Ryan is reading a Mario Lopez
Yeah, I saw that.
autobiography in the sex scene.
Yeah.
And we had some fun with that because Mario was the one who got hit on the head with the Klieg light
In our announcement.
in
that it
our
was
announcement that was
rated
rated
R.
R, and we thought we would have some fun with that. That's a little nod. I'm trying to think, what are all the tiny little things?
The pizza box says Feige's Finest Pizza.
Oh, I didn't
It's a
see that.
Yeah, shout out to Kevin
Okay.
Feige.
Yeah.
Even though he wasn't on this movie, he's done so much for Marvel and so much for all those wonderful movies really flow down from him. So we wanted to give a shout out
On
to
that
him.
Deadpool board, I'm trying to think who's
with all the
on that.
names?
Yeah, we had a lot of
Justin
fun with
Bieber's
those.
on that. Bill Cosby is on that. Tom Hanks. Yeah, you'd have to pause that on home video to really catch that.
So when
all
it
those
does come to home video too, there's been a lot of reports online that said this is the movie. We didn't hold anything back. Is there anything to look forward to on the actual home video release as far as extras?
Oh, sure. There won't. I don't think anyway there'll be a really coherent director's cut, because this is a director's cut. I think this is the movie Tim wanted to make, and so I don't think there's some secret cut that's raunchier that Tim wanted to make. There may be a slightly different version, but not too different. But what you will get a lot of is bonus deleted scenes, extra alts. We did so many alts for so many of these jokes.
I want the full 10-minute TJ Miller.
Yes,
diss
you will
track.
get that
Yeah.
for sure. And I would say almost assuredly a lot more of those kinds of things, gag reels and extras. I think it's going to be a tremendous DVD because, again, we did use so many ridiculous comic things that didn't make it in for one reason or another. There's a moment that didn't make it in. Our collective favorite moment that didn't make it in was he takes the Wolverine Origins, the X-Men Origins Wolverine action figure. He picks it up and he says, "This is my most prized possession." And then you realize he's not talking about that. He's talking about the Wham album. Then he takes the Wham album and sets that aside. And there was a moment right on the heels of that where he said, "And this," and he holds the action figure back up again, "is the biggest piece of shit in the history of Earth." And he throws it down into the wastebasket. And I think there was some feeling that it was maybe a little too much piling on onto that older movie, so it got pulled out. But But hopefully you'll be able to see that. It was just a few more.
That
of
was
those winks.
the one moment that we wished had made it in the movie
Yeah.
that didn't.
Well, it really, I mean, like, so I didn't even remember until there was, I think, some reference to it in this movie that Ryan Reynolds had not only been
Green Lantern.
Shitty Deadpool, he'd also been in the Blade
Shitty
series.
Deadpool. Ryan Reynolds as Shitty Deadpool.
Yeah. That's what the role is now titled.
He was also in the Blade movies, one of
right.
the Blade movies.
Blade
So,
Trinity.
like, in your opinion, like, has he been on just a quest for the last, like, 15 years to really just do a superhero right and just keeps letting himself down? And is that what's been pushing him to make this movie so
Well,
badly?
I mean, again, I think Deadpool has been a passion of his even before he assumed the mantle on any of these other superhero movies. So, you know, it may have just been filling space until this one came around.
Yeah.
He's like already talking about how he wants to make he wants Cable to be his next big upgrade to the thing, and so we have a question from people who've seen this, and they just announced yesterday, I think.
Yesterday, the day before, that Deadpool 2 is greenlit.
Not officially.
Not
Nothing's
officially?
official.
No.
No. We'll see how it does this weekend.
Yeah.
But
But that's got to be, even the rumors being out there has to be kind of a seal of approval from, like...
Very exciting.
Yeah,
for
like,
sure.
people already want the sequel. What? I mean, you can ask the question.
Yeah, so very innocent name, Gamer1001 says
The most innocuous name on the list.
so I hear you guys are already writing the script for the next Deadpool movie. I don't know if that's true or not. Where do you see the character going? Will there be more Marvel characters thrown into the mix the next time around?
If it
Oh,
happens.
absolutely, yes. More characters in the mix. I mean, but I think it'll be probably a mix of old and new. I mean, they're beloved characters from this movie who people aren't going to want to see go away. So we're going to want to bring some folks back. I don't think we're going to go the route of some of the Avengers movies where we just get a ton of characters, because I think that will probably distract too much from Deadpool. But there will definitely be other characters. Cable's someone that's being very seriously discussed, obviously, because
A lot of people want John Hamm for him.
Oh, John Hamm, interesting choice.
Interesting,
Yeah, I think Rob Liefeld might have even floated John Hamm as he's great. He'd be great. Yeah, I mean that casting decision wouldn't be made for a while. But in any case, yeah, Cable is such an obvious, I think, appropriate choice. Whether he's in the movie 100%, I mean, we'll have to see. But it's looking, it's looking pretty likely.
Is that so? Can you confirm that you're writing it, or at least throwing ideas around
it's
for it?
Early stage, very, very early stages is what
Okay.
we can confirm. But again, it could all halt tomorrow if people don't show up to the movie.
Yeah.
So we really do need that.
it really, the fans brought the first one to life
Yeah.
by their reaction to the test footage, and the fans will bring the sequel to life if they they go see the first one. So.
Absolutely, yeah, and it would be, because this one, although it is big and expansive, and what gets done in this movie is a lot. Like you said, the budget restriction alone of being able to, like, you're on that highway for a while. The end scene is incredible. The end fight scene, it's huge, it's massive, it's action packed. Is there anything that you wanted to do specifically on this movie that might be held for later because of any kind of budget restriction?
Absolutely. I mean, I don't know if it's there probably won't be too many exact specifics,
Yeah.
but we did have a lot of ideas for the first movie that just couldn't come to life because of budget, and we are not above recycling good ideas. Not recycling them, but just using them for the first time
Yeah.
in front of an audience, because a good idea is a good idea, and a good action scene is a good action scene. A good set piece is a good set piece. So we have done that in the past, where for whatever reason a really cool element from a movie didn't take off, or didn't end up in a movie, and we've applied it somewhere else to success. So we wouldn't be above that.
I agree.
And you guys are busy on another kind of unorthodox comic book property right now, Cowboy Ninja Viking.
We're in a holding pattern on Cowboy Ninja Viking just to see how things shake down, but Chris Pratt's attached. It's a very super cool comic that we're very excited about, so yes. Just kind of waiting for schedules to clear up, and Chris is the most in-demand movie star in the
Yeah,
world
he's
right now.
just
about
exploded. It's insane.
But he's passionate about
Yeah.
it, so we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I had never heard of the comic at all when I saw the announcement.
Go
but,
check it out.
Oh, it's a great one.
So we don't have to get into the origins of it, but just reading like the Wikipedia of it, I'm like, all right, this is insane. I'm on board. It's a bunch of like
I mean, it's a
personality assassins.
It's a character with multiple personality disorder who has a cowboy and ninja Viking living inside his head and manifests itself in both physically and verbally, and it's just again left of center. It spoke to us. Usually projects left of center speak to us, and it felt just different and cool and funny and interesting, and Chris fell in love with it, and now again it's just finding that time within his very, very busy schedule.
So did working on Deadpool lead directly to you guys getting attached to that? Are you guys now like the unorthodox comic guys?
That was beforehand, right? That was before Deadpool, was it not?
No, I think it was after.
Are you sure?
It was taking so long. I'm pretty sure we did it after Deadpool, yeah.
Is there something about like just the ridiculous factor in a lot of things that kind of draws you to writing these types of scripts where it's like, I could have a lot of fun with this, or there's room to play in this?
Sure, though absolutely we're not only writing these kinds of things. We have multiple dramas in the works. We optioned a book about the decision by Coca-Cola to change the formula of Coke
Coke,
in the fight against Pepsi back in the 80s, which we're really excited about. We've got some pilot dramas in television. We have a film that, if we're lucky, should go into production sometime later this year, which is a science fiction thriller horror kind of thing called Life. And it's couldn't be further in tone from Deadpool. So so we try all different kinds of things, but we do have a soft spot for this kind of genre mixing action comedy like Zombieland and Deadpool. So that's certainly a genre that speaks to us.
Yeah, and then we do have a question specifically about that. Craft Me Bacon wants to know if there's any plans for a Zombieland 2.
There are. We're not working on it in terms of writing, but we're attached as executive producers, and we've been involved in the creative process on that movie. It's been a slow one to come together, but we only want to do if it comes together in the right, exact, cool way. And so that takes time sometimes, and it's still percolating.
Yeah, that one hit a weird bump in the road with that Amazon series too.
We did. We tried a TV series. Yeah, we tried a TV pilot for it, and I think it was just a little too early. I think people were just clamoring for the movie version and clamoring for the same actors to come back, and so it didn't move forward at Amazon. But it was fun. But it didn't move forward at Amazon. So I think the likelihood is that there will be a Zombieland 2, but it might not be for a little bit still.
I specifically off the top of my head, how Marvel has had good success with Jessica Jones and Daredevil. There hasn't been announced any kind of 20th Century Fox.
Well, they got Legion on FX.
But would you? Okay, so this is my dream right now. But like, would there ever be enough to go off of to do like a Negasonic Teenage Warhead Netflix series? Like,
why not?
Where could you go with that? Why
that character?
Not?
I mean, it'd be really interesting because we haven't explored her origins at all, or where she came from,
and you'd be pretty much writing that. Creating the origins.
Gosh, yeah. I mean, it would be a blank.
It's a great
slate.
idea.
Yeah,
thank you.
Really fun.
You're welcome.
Yes.
And, I hope to see it on Netflix.
Netflix kicks you some cash.
Netflix,
for
please make this possible, because I would watch as much Negasonic Teenage Warhead as possible.
Shoot it like Sweet Valley High or something like that. Multicam.
Executive producers.
Yeah, I mean, forget pleading to Netflix. Now you're asking for executive producers. Fuck that. I mean, you're not a viewer. You're a creator, my friend.
Oh man, that would be great.
Yeah.
All right, let's make this. Let's get these guys out of here and start writing this.
Got work to do.
But yeah, no, Deadpool is just such a fun movie, and we talked about it when you guys came in the room. We could talk a little bit more freely now because this is the spoilery version, but just like, it's just so cool to see something that's so different on screen regarding, like, relating to superhero movies and stuff like that, and it's really refreshing. And the worry of, I mean, it'll all be over by the time that this thing, and hopefully it'll be a very, very happy Sunday for you guys when the box office numbers get back. And I don't think that it'll be bad in any stretch of the imagination, but it's just a cool thing to kind of experience and have the fans along for the ride through the production of the movie. And you rarely see that with any kind of big superhero movie where the fans are so involved with the whole thing. So it's kind of this culmination finally as it's released. Is it a relief to you guys?
It's a relief and a dream come true, really. You know, after the long struggles and rolling the ball up the hill so many times, only to have it roll back and crush us over the last 6.5 years. So, yeah, I mean, this has been the greatest week of our professional lives, easily.
When you bang the drum and beg people to trust you and tell them why they should trust you, literally hundreds and hundreds of times over the course of years, it feels very vindicating and delicious to have the fans react the way they're reacting. It's just, you feel like, yes, I wasn't crazy. You know?
Yeah, and hopefully it does allow studios to take more risks, you know, because this was a huge risk. The fact that Fox made this movie, a movie where, you know, the heroine of the movie at the end of the you know, romantic struggle says, you know, it's a face I'd be happy to sit on. Like, when Rhett wrote that line, I read it and I loved it. It's my favorite line of the movie. And then I hated it because I said, oh my God, Fox is never, ever, ever going to make this movie. And so it really, you know, it really is a bold decision by Fox to do something like this. This is a big studio, and this doesn't feel like a, you know, like a safe choice. It's, you know, it's getting.
You have Ryan Reynolds getting fucked in the ass during a romantic scene in this.
How about he's going to go masturbate with his little baby hand? How about that? Like, you know,
my God, that baby hand was just.
That's my daughter. That's my daughter's hand, actually.
Really?
Yeah,
oh, that's good. Well, that just made things awkward. But yeah, like it's just so cool to see something that. It looks like it was fun to work on. It looked like it was fun to film. It's fun being an audience member in this movie. And it just, like, the whole thing just comes off so perfectly that, I mean, congratulations to you.
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Really thank you so much for having us on. It's been fun.
Yeah, it's been a dream to have you guys on as well.
Yeah, we talk about superhero franchise movies, all that stuff all the time. And, I mean, like, a big point of conversation usually when these movies are announced is just kind of like franchise fatigue, superhero fatigue, and stuff like that. And this was such a breath of fresh air.
Oh, thank you.
Because so many of these movies, one thing that really annoys me is some of these movies, they all end the same. It's always some major city getting just like fucking destroyed by aliens or something like that. Like the scale is always
sometimes
it's
too
huge.
much.
Yeah, it's huge, but it's like to the point where there's no real stakes to it.
Yeah.
And here you have a movie where you've got one hero. There's a few other people that help him out. You've got one villain with one major sidekick, and the two big fight battles or whatever. One's just on a freeway, and one's at a what do you even call that? Is that a shipping
junkyard? We call it
it's a
scrapyard.
character piece.
It's
This is the movie's a character piece. I think that's what maybe is so refreshing to audiences is that, you know, we aren't lifting cities up into the sky, and we're not, you know, having an alien invasion. It's a very intimate character.
It's unrealistic, but based like it feels more realistic than a lot of the other stuff you see. But I think my favorite part in this is. I remember when I was sitting there watching it, when Colossus comes up to Deadpool and he's like, you know, you have to be stronger than that. You can't kill Ajax, basically. And I was just like, oh, please don't let him go. Please. Like, I was sitting there like, this will be my turning point in this movie if he doesn't fucking kill him right now. And then when it happened, it was like I was lifted up and just like it was the coolest feeling to be like, oh my God, he really did it. Yeah. Because you're so trained to be like, yeah, he's not going to do it. He's going to get talked out of it. And then it is such a surprise. It's such a breath of fresh air to actually see him go through with it and murder this man in cold blood.
I mean, that was really like the mission statement of the movie, just like in one scene right there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, no, he's not an X-Men.
No one will learn anything in this movie.
No, it is. And I think that's kind of the best part of this whole film as it stands is that it takes everything that has been hammered into you about 2000s, 2010s action movies, superhero franchises, and even comedies, and just surprises you every single scene with what it should be doing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I always say you oftentimes, almost always sit in a movie theater, and in the first 5 minutes of the movie, you can pattern out the entire rest of the movie. You can say, exactly how the main character's journey is going to go. And we really did want to take the audience on a roller coaster ride and not know what the fuck was going to happen, have them on the edge of their seats going, this guy is so unpredictable, anything can go, you know? And so I think that's one of the big thrills for the audience as they're watching it.
I didn't see a whole lot of Save the Cat going on in there.
In fact, he does. There was a scene cut where he does save a cat.
Oh my God.
That's such an insider joke to have. But
it's a bummer that it came out. That'll probably also be on the DVD.
Awesome. Well, it was a real pleasure having you guys in, and congratulations.
Thank you
on it.
guys so much for having us.
Best of luck this weekend. I don't think you need it. But best of luck.
All right.
Awesome.
Cool.
Please go see Deadpool. It's your duty to go see this movie so that they can do more, not just these two guys, but the whole film industry as a whole.
No, just us two, actually.
Specifically them.
Yes.